Hello and welcome to the Luna and Morpho channel. We are so excited today. This is our third video of the year, and we're really excited to be talking about kind of where we're at in the season. We're going to pull a few cards, a little energy update, and we're going to kind of riff on the energy of the season and kind of where we're at. And so Lindsay's pulled some cards for us already. And yeah, do you want to introduce us to those cards, Lindsay?
Yeah, absolutely. So I felt really called for us today to do a little pull from the Divine Abundance deck by Tasha Silver. So it looks like this in case any of y'all are interested. I love this deck. It's so beautiful. The artwork is incredible, as you're about to see. And we had three cards come out today. And it's really beautiful with the number three in general. If you've watched any of my readings before, you know I always like to pay attention to how many cards come out on the table, because the number three in general is a number of things coming together. So I always think of this energy of unity with the number three, but then also three talks about expansion, right? And multiplication in many ways. It's like we have something growing, something building, something transforming. And three has that really unique energy of things coming together to come out, almost like it's reminding me of the energy of the Big Bang, right? There's the singularity where all the energy is getting pulled together so tightly that it immediately expands and creates something beautiful. It's this cyclical kind of number that talks about beautiful change and something being created. So I love that that number is here. And it kind of perfectly lines up with the cards as well. So the first card we have is Divine Abundance. Divine Abundance. I love this card so much, especially because this is the title of the deck as well, is like completely titled after this card and this idea. So the bottom of the card says, you were born to align with love's will, follow the Tao, and serve something beyond the ego. Learn to be abundance, not chase it. And really, I think what this card is talking about is we're really born to be one with life and to claim our divine birthright, our sovereign birthright, to exist peacefully, to exist in whatever way we desire to exist. And that'll be different for each and every one of us. So there's something about the learning to be abundance and not chasing it. I think that can be so true about so many things. Learning to simply be instead of chasing becoming something else or doing something else or always running to the next thing, instead of learning to be what we are and kind of taking that journey inwards instead of always trying to go outwards. Now, of course, like I was just talking about the number three, there are seasons of going outwards and then there are seasons of going inwards. And that is the cycle, which I think is extra interesting because I see this in the card Expansiveness, the next card we have. So you can see all these concentric circles, right? All these concentric rings with all these butterflies on it, along with some other animals as well. But the bottom of this card says, eternity is far more creative than the rigid, constrained, and exhausted ego. So it's the second time ego is mentioned. And there's something here that is saying that the ego, right, thinks we know everything and thinks very small. The ego is very small. It thinks we know everything. It thinks very linearly. When we think about the possibilities, the limitless possibilities that exist out there, the limitless ways of seeing things, limitless perspectives, the ego is very small. So eternity being far more creative, it's just a humble reminder that we exist in a very important way, but also our perspective and what our mind tells us is very constrained. And it can be exhausting to try to know everything when really our place is to just accept that we are kind of here to know one thing. We're here to know ourselves amidst a giant universe, right? And then the final card here is Divine Flow. Divine Flow. I love this card, especially because flow for me is always associated with the number 8, which is the numerology of this year, 2024. So I love seeing Divine Flow. And again, more butterflies here. So that might be a sign for some of us or all of us, right? Eventually, one sublime desire takes precedence over all others, to follow the divine flow at all costs. And I think there's just a really sweet message of surrender with this card. And really all three cards. Another thing I just want to point out before we get into kind of the messages and the takeaways that Tilly and I have from both of these cards, I just want to point out that it's in a divine sandwich, right? We have divine flow and divine abundance with expansiveness in the middle. And I think there's a hint here of when you are desiring growth, when you are desiring change, you really have to find the balance between flowing and surrendering with what is, and then learning how to do what you can. I guess learning what you can control and focus on that. There's something with this divine abundance card with, again, the learning to be abundance and not chasing it. There is learning involved. There is experimentation. There's maybe making mistakes. There's seeing, what works for you. And so there is an action involved with learning, right? We have to be open to learning. We have to put ourselves in the right environment to learn. But then with the divine flow, it's sort of like, can we just float? Can we just flow with what's here? And so that divine sandwich is both of those actions of surrender and action. The balance is what helps us to expand, to grow, to learn, to become. And I think that that is something really beautiful that sort of reflects where we're at in the season as well, of being in this time of in between, not taking too much action, not surrendering too much, but just being in that middle place of how can I both surrender where I need to and take action where I need to. And I know that this is something that Tilly and I are both feeling in the collective as well. So what's coming through for you with those cards, Tilly? And do you have anything to add about how you're feeling with where we're at in the season?
Yeah, I mean, there keeps on being this reoccurring theme, even from the last card that I was talking about with that beyond the mind, the heart beats. And we even did a little meditation before this. We were just talking about like if you tune into your heartbeat, like there's nothing you have to do to make your heart beat. You don't have to like focus on it or like meditate about it or try to force it or be like beat this way or da da da. It's just a natural flow. And so I really love that divine flow. And that's something that I'm also just going to bring in a little bit of my monk mode that I'm really trying to tune into is like, what is the divine's flow? Like not my flow, like what is my, like, I'm not trying to like, oh, what's this? And I'm really just in deep listening and stillness and kind of, just kind of focusing on where nature is right now as well. And we talked about this a little earlier, but the seeds, like if we all think about, the spring and blooming and all these things, which we all like to do the first of the year, but where we're actually at in nature is everything is just kind of a seed. It's lying dormant under the ground, just kind of, I don't even want to say resting, but it's in stillness. And I was reading the other day that there's a difference between like being still and like stillness, like sitting still and stillness are two different things. One of them, you're just kind of sitting on the couch, like doing nothing kind of thing. There's that side. And then there's also like meditation. And those are two very different energies. One of them is like, just kind of like, I don't even know how to like say it correctly, but one of them is like much more passive and like life is just happening to me. And one of them is I'm in really deep listening right now of like what this is and also very aware. And so when we were talking about the seed earlier, we're talking about like when we think of the seeds getting ready to bloom or whatever they're doing, they're actually not actively doing anything before they're supposed to bloom, which is where we're all kind of at right now. But what is important that we were talking about is the environment the seed is actually in is really important right now. And so kind of maybe looking at your life right now and just beginning to be aware of the environment that you're in. And if you're the seed of your life right now in winter, the beginning or the middle of winter, then where is your environment and where have you landed and what around you is just noticing what's around you, just beginning to notice the environment you're in. For example, when the guy was talking about monk mode, he was saying he doesn't listen to rap music. He doesn't listen to screamo music. He doesn't listen to those things because it doesn't support the environment of stillness that he's in and the thing he's trying to create or the imagination or the thing. So he was saying that he listens to a lot of like classical music or meditation music around the house, or sometimes he doesn't listen to anything at all for like weeks. He just won't even listen to any kind of sounds. And I just thought that was fascinating. So yeah, do you have anything to add to that, Lindsay, on the like on the environment and stillness or the seed or like any kind of things from your perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just really interesting what you said about seeds laying dormant in the winter time, because I just see that really being a direct correlation to where some of us might be at as well, of this feeling of like, okay, seeds are planted. I know, especially with the new year, right? Which we talked about a little bit in previous videos, but there can be this pressure or this kind of expectation of ourselves of this is going to be my year and I'm accomplishing this year and it's going to go this way and I have these goals. And there's a delicate balance between letting life tell you where it's asking you to go and letting things unfold naturally, and force and not forcing, right, some of those actions, while also knowing, well, the only way that change is going to be created is if I take action with that intention. So there's something really beautiful about that seed laying dormant that can be a really beautiful analogy for us as well, for where we're at, is trust the seeds that you've planted, trust the small actions that you're committed to making and taking throughout the day, or throughout the week, throughout the month, throughout the year, right? And as long as you're just focusing on that intention of, I'm going to show up and do this, and the rest is going to take care of itself. It's the same way that a seed doesn't have to force itself to grow, or, Tilly said this earlier, but you don't have to knock on the seed and be like, hello, like, time to grow. The seed naturally grows when it's time. And it's part of knowing that the seed is planted in the right environment. So as you were kind of saying too, I just felt called to add that it's really important for us to look at, kind of zoom out a little bit, and have a bigger picture moment of sort of like, okay, what are some larger things, maybe just for a second as an exercise? What are some larger things I'd like to create this year? What's the feeling of this year that I would like to create? What are some major, or small, tiny, whatever it is to you, like, what are some steps that by the end of this year, like, where would I like to be? How would I like to feel? Who do I hope that I'm becoming? And as we're zooming out and looking at that perspective, then asking what environment would support that growth. So not only with things that are immediately in your control, like the music that you listen to, right? Or the individual steps you take each day, but also just kind of looking at your emotional landscape as well, of, let's look at the people that I have in my life. Let's look at the extracurricular activities I have outside of the home. Let's look at my weekly routine. Again, like zooming out a little bit from the day to day and being like, okay, am I in the right environment for this goal, for this feeling, for this intention to grow and to take place? And I think the reason why it's especially important right now is that as we have a few months to go, right? But as we're getting near the spring is when those seeds begin to sprout. Right now, they're laying dormant, but they're going to start growing roots. They're going to start taking shape, and they're going to be growing underneath the soil before we ever see it topside, right? Before we ever see that little tiny green leaf beginning to poke out. So this is the season of growing our roots, growing underneath the surface. So you might be doing a lot of growth inside that other people can't see, that other people might not know about, right? But that growth is so important, right? A tree can only grow as tall as its roots are firm and strong, right? So now is the time to kind of begin to think about, okay, what roots do I need to grow? What foundations need to be set in order for me to grow when spring comes, or when later in the year comes, wherever you're at in your personal cycle. But the final thing I feel called to add on that with the roots is that the seed initially grows in darkness. Roots grow in darkness, in stillness, and even babies, right, grow in darkness. There's no light inside of our body, like there's no flashlight, right? We're growing in the dark when you're growing a human being. There's something really beautiful about darkness. I think especially when we're on spiritual topics and people talking about darkness, they think of evil or something bad or something scary, something dark, right? And darkness is actually just the energy of the unknown, of not being able to see it all, not needing to plan. The energy of darkness, or the cosmic womb, the place that the seed is in, that we are in internally, underground, growing these roots, it's a place of not knowing exactly what's coming next, but trusting that you're going to move through growth anyway. You don't need to plan it all. You don't need to see it all. You don't need to know it all and have it all be illuminated for you in some bright neon sign kind of way, right? We can be in that darkness and just trust, I'm in a place of stillness. I'm in a place of growth. I might not be able to see it, and it might not be obvious, or maybe it's not obvious to other people, but I can feel it on the inside. I can release my need to know, and I can just be present in the fact that I know my growth is happening little by little, day by day. And that's something really beautiful to take in as well. So winter for me is a time when I try to give myself a lot less stimulation than maybe the summer, right? The summertime, I feel really called to be out with friends and walking outdoors, and I just feel a lot more active. But in the winter, I want everything to be a little bit more quiet. I do focus on stillness. I stay at home a little bit more. I read more, and I'm just kind of into my own internal activities. And I think part of that is that inner reflection of that time of going inward, right? And then eventually there will be that time to expand outwards. So, just some messages on that that I felt called to add in there.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. And I also want to add in we're really in a year, a divine feminine year. And so Lindsay and I really love to work with goddesses and goddess energy. So many of us are like, God, God, God. And we really are inviting the feminine back into our lives, and especially with this channel where we're talking about the seasons of the year and the seasons of our lives and the seasons that our bodies go through as women. And this is a lot about why we bring this energy in. But I really wanted to offer you guys, if you are interested in working with a goddess, a really beautiful goddess to work with right now is Sage. I believe that's how you say it. But here's just a little quote from the Goddess Divine book. And it says, "In silence I hear, in stillness, I feel. In nothingness, I create. And in emptying, I receive." And I just loved that so much of like everything that you want to create happens in stillness first. So kind of this stillness of not even, and maybe not even thinking like, I love what Lindsay said about like planning, like what are your big pictures for the years, but what if you didn't have a big picture and you were just like, how do I feel right now just in this moment, and how do I like, not like, oh, I need to do this or I need to do this, I need to do this, but like just noticing your environment and how do I feel in this environment, and how can I get really still and just really quiet and really in deep listening. Like if we're going to co-create with God, it's not us going in like, here's my plan, and then like not listening at all to like maybe what God or goddess has planned for you. Like it's really just kind of being in listening and being like, okay, what wants to happen? And then in this era, in this season of life is really just like kind of looking around and like, how do I feel in my environment right now? And that's something I've really loved about monk mode is I've just been really taking note of like, how do I feel when I drink coffee in the morning as opposed to tea? And just noticing the subtle differences in my body, or how do I feel again listening to quieter music as opposed to like maybe some of my upbeat house music. Like how do I feel in my body, or how do I feel in this friendship? How do I feel when I go to coffee with this one friend, or if I go to the library with this one friend? Like how do I feel after that? And just really taking inventory, because that's a really good way to know if you're in the right environment, is that your nervous system feels really calm. You feel relaxed. You don't feel this like, I've got to do this, or I need to do this, or I need to this. And that's something that's really helped me with social media as well. Letting it go is I don't feel this need to keep up with the Joneses. I don't feel this need to be like, oh, this person's hitting their fitness goal January 1st. Like I should be at the gym every day, like working really hard. Like when that maybe yoga feels better to me personally. And maybe it's not my goals to weigh like a certain thing, or like have a certain body type. Like I just want to feel good in my body, and so yoga feels more this to me. But when I get online, I've noticed that when I was on social media, it was like, well, this person's highlight is their relationship today, and this person's highlight of their life right now is their fashion, and this person's highlight of their life is their business. And so it's so easy to be like, I should be doing all of these things that everyone is doing so well. And so I've noticed that when I've taken a step back from social media, it's really an invitation to be like, okay, how do I actually feel? Like, do I actually really enjoy my trailer as opposed to like some big fancy magazine house? And do I actually really enjoy my, just my time with my baby as opposed to like traveling to Bali? Like it's just really an interesting thing to kind of just take note of where you're at. And I've been actually realizing how many things feel really good for my life too. It's not all like, oh, this friendship doesn't feel good or this feels good. I'm like, oh, I actually am kind of in a divine flow because I feel really relaxed. I feel really good. And so that's a really beautiful way to know if your seed that you're going to grow, or that you're going to co-create is in the right environment. Are you feeling like you're naturally like kind of just feeling a flow going? Do you have anything to add to that, Lindsay?
I don't think so. I was just in deep listening of what you were saying, and I agree. I agree. I think That's something that I also took away from monk mode more than anything else was just this knowing that I really enjoy my life. I really enjoy my life. And I was able to see certain things I didn't enjoy, but the things I didn't enjoy were already the things that I was cutting out or I was deciding to go without for a while. And I knew I wasn't enjoying them, which is why I took the break, right? From social media, from certain dynamics within my online business, right? Like stepping away from that and then just reimagining if I didn't have to do this, how else could it look? And exploring that. And on the other side, it was like, wow, I really don't need or want all the things I thought I needed or wanted when I just come back to how I'm actually feeling. There's so much in my life that's beautiful, and I'd rather go focus on the things that I already have than always focus on the next thing that I want next or that I feel like I should want or this other person has or like, so yeah, that's a main thing that I've also taken away from that time of just yeah, just realizing how much we compare without noticing it. Really, it's so embedded in our like social conditioning and our social culture to being like, oh, someone else is doing that. That looks great. They're happy. I want to be happy, so I'll try what they're doing. And we're always trying to try on what everyone else does to find happiness instead of just sitting with ourselves in stillness and being like, what does happiness feel like to me? Does this make me feel happy? Does this make me feel happy in a very natural, calm, still present way. So I love that you added that in and I second it 100%.
Yeah, I also feel like it kind of comes back to the seeds because you might think that it would be really easy for something like a pumpkin to look at the tulip that's blooming so fast and is like, whoo, and the pumpkin's like, oh man, I'm like so behind and so I'm so off. And so even that kind of like, if you think of us all as like little plants, it's really important to tune into your own makeup, your own flow, your own design. So even as we're talking about this, you may be like, I'm in the spring of my life. I'm in this, like I'm the tulip. I'm ready to pop up right now. Like I'm ready to go or something. And so that's really what it comes down to though, is like really tuning into how do you feel? What is your natural rhythm right now? And just how the things in your life make you feel. My biggest point with the social media thing was like after I get off social media, I didn't feel good. I didn't feel better. I didn't feel productive. And so I noticed that that's something in my environment that actually it's like putting like, I don't even know, like oil or something in a plant. It's not helping me to grow. And so I noticed by how I felt when I'd get off social media though, of like, okay, that's actually not something that makes me feel like I'm growing or makes me feel like it's conducive to my flow, and it doesn't make me feel relaxed in my nervous system. And so that's not part of my environment right now. And so just noticing what those things are is mainly my point. And it really helps to be in stillness because how often do we actually think, after I listen to that song, how do I feel? Or do we just listen to the next song and the next song and the next song, and not even noticing how these things are affecting our emotions. And Lindsay and I are both Reiki masters, so we are both taught, and it's part of our job to be attuned to energy. But I really love to just invite this to any person of like, after you eat something, how does it feel? How do you feel after you eat a burger? Do you even notice it, or do you just eat it and go on to your next thing? Or how does it feel going to the gym? How do you feel after you go to the gym? Do you feel, and just really noticing like, how does my body feel? And that noticing and cutting out the things in your life that are not feeling good in your body is going to be creating a really beautiful environment, which I don't think is focused on enough in the growth process. It's like so many people are like, oh, you got to hit this goal or hit this goal or hit this goal. But it's like, if you're not in the right environment to grow in the first place, and your friends are talking about toxic gossip as opposed to like, their dreams and their wishes and their things that they're starting and their art they're creating and these things, then what is the, like, even no matter what steps you're taking, like you're still kind of being brought back. Like I was saying, like with social media, like I can be taking all these steps and then I get on social media and scroll and I'm like, oh, it's taking me, it's not giving my plant the nourishment that it needs if I'm like a seed. So that's kind of just an energetic thing, I think, of where we're kind of at in the season and what we can be mindful of and what we can begin to naturally in the growth process kind of be at, where I know a lot of us aren't like, oh, I'm going to be just creating this thing right now because we're kind of still in winter, but we can just be aware of our environment and be like, okay, I know I'm going to be growing in the spring. I know there's going to be some energy coming in. Now, what is the environment? Is it am I on a cement pad? Or like Lindsay was saying, like, am I next to a volcano that's gonna like the seeds just gonna combine, like, or am I in some really good fertile soil with lots of nutrients around it so that when I am ready or when nature's ready or when it naturally wants to unfold, I'm in the best place to possibly naturally unfold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. I totally agree. It's exciting too, just because I feel like it's asking us to focus on not only on what doesn't feel good in our body, but in stillness, we feel all the good things too. And I think focusing on what feels really great and continuing to move in that direction, regardless of if it makes anybody else feel great or what everybody else is doing, it just allows you to wake up and go to sleep every day or eat every day or do whatever you do every single day and be like, I really enjoy this, wow. And then just the next day being like, wow, I still enjoy this is great. Oh my gosh, the next day, wow, this is still making me feel great. It's just it's a really beautiful way to live, and it gives us so many tools, especially for when you're going through grief or you're going through something difficult. Or I know so many people are affected by seasonal affective disorder, and so there's a lot of wintertime blues that happen for people. But when you're focusing on things that make your heart feel light or bring you joy or bring you comfort, bring you peace, you have so many tools to go back to those practices over and over and over when you need a boost. And I think we're so conditioned and taught that when we're not feeling good, we just move on to the next thing, move on to the next thing, move on to the next thing. And that really doesn't serve us because it's a bunch of distraction away from how we truly feel. So this conversation has been really enriching, and I hope that it has been inspiring for everyone that's listening as well, just to tune in and spend some time with yourself and feel into that environment. I think it's really going to help us as we near the spring, but also is just kind of our life support throughout the winter.
Mhm. Yeah, I love what you just said. It makes me feel like take note of what your water and your sunshine is, kind of thing. Like, what is your water and what is your sunshine? Or, what things feel like water and sunshine to you? And just, yeah, because that's going to be naturally uplifting. So, yeah, that's kind of where we're at in the season. A little energy update for you guys. And happy wintering still. Happy wintering still. Even though TJ Maxx has its spring things out, do not buy into the buy into the hype. We're still in winter, and it's okay to honor yourself in that winter as well. I remember one of my friends was saying that she'd get really depressed in that. I think part of the reason that we get depression in the winter is actually because we're so used to going. And so when we're in the winter and it's still, we're like, oh, I should be going. I should be. And I feel like my depression went away a lot when I realized I actually don't need to be going and it's okay for me to rest and read a book. And it was like, oh, like for some reason that really helped me be like, oh, and again, not scrolling on social media of all these people who are doing things and really being able to just be like, oh, it's okay for me to not be doing right now. And I don't need to be. And I can sit and read a book. And I've actually found it really enjoyable to like take that inner journey. And it's really helped a lot with my seasonal depression because I used to get it really bad. So anyways, honoring the seasons of our body, of our lives. And yeah, as always, thank you guys for being here with us. And we'll be doing these videos every week and kind of updating you guys on the energy of the seasons, inviting you guys again. That goddess's name was Sage, and you can read about her. A really beautiful way to work with a goddess is to research them and then also just to kind of meditate with them. If you really want to know a goddess, just invite them in and just kind of be with the energy that comes in. But Sage is the goddess of silence, and she's one I've really been working with during monk mode. So yeah, I just want to send that invitation to you guys, and we will see you next week.
Sounds good. Thank you.